My name is Madison, I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how my own brother, the one I sacrificed everything for, broke me with words I will never forget, and how life eventually brought him back to me, not with pride, but with premium tears. Before I begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful true story style narratives. Stories about betrayal, sacrifice, and revenge that you won't want to miss. Growing up in our family house wasn't easy. It was an old place, with cracked walls that seemed to hold more secrets than warmth. The roof leaked whenever the rains came, and the electricity would cut out without warning, plunging us into long evenings of candlelight. My parents did the best they could, but money was always short, and dreams always seemed just a little out of reach. Being the eldest, responsibility fell on me whether I wanted it or not. My younger brother, Ethan, was the golden child in everyone's eyes. He was smart, ambitious, and carried himself with the kind of confidence I envied. From a young age, he would announce boldly, "I'm going to be a doctor one day. I'll make this family proud." And everyone believed him. But dreams like that come with a price tag, a heavy one. When it came time for his secondary school and then university, my parents simply couldn't afford the costs. That's where I stepped in. I was only in my mid-20s then, just starting my own life, but instead of saving for myself, I took on the burden of his education. "Don't worry," I told him one night as he sat at the kitchen table, his head buried in books. "I'll find a way to cover your fees. Just focus on your studies." He looked up at me, eyes bright with hope. "Really, Madison? You'd do that?" I smiled, though inside I was terrified of how I would manage. "Of course. You'll be the doctor of this family, Ethan. And I'll make sure of it." That was the beginning of 6 long years. 6 years of double shifts, late nights, and endless sacrifices. I worked at a small office by day and tutored children by night. There were times I skipped meals to save money, times I patched up old clothes instead of buying new ones, times I borrowed money from friends just to cover the gap in his tuition. But I never complained. Each time he passed an exam, each time he moved a step closer to his dream, I felt it was worth it. My parents praised him endlessly. "Ethan is our hope," they would say proudly to relatives. "He's the one who will change everything." And sometimes, I would wait for them to add, "because Madison made it possible." But they never did. I told myself it didn't matter. What mattered was Ethan's future. By the time his graduation day came, I was exhausted but proud. I remember standing in front of the mirror that morning, wearing a plain navy blue dress, the only nice dress I owned. My hair was tied back simply, no makeup, no jewelry. I wanted the day to be about him, not me. At the ceremony, the atmosphere was electric. Families cheered, cameras flashed, and I watched with tears in my eyes as Ethan walked across the stage in his gown and cap. My chest swelled with pride. We did it, I thought. All those years, all that sacrifice, it finally paid off. When the ceremony ended, we gathered around him, relatives and friends crowding in with congratulations. Someone, a family friend, smiled at me and said warmly, "Madison, you must be so proud. After all you've done for him, this must feel like your success too." But before I could respond, Ethan laughed. Not a laugh of joy, but one of dismissal. He waved his hand casually and said, "Huh? Please. Madison hasn't done anything. She's basically useless. If I made it here, it's because of me, my hard work, my intelligence. Not her." The world stopped spinning. His words cut through me sharper than any blade could. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest, my throat tightening. Around us, some relatives looked away awkwardly. My parents chuckled nervously, as if his words were just harmless teasing. But no one corrected him. No one defended me. I looked at him, my brother, my sacrifice, my pride, and in that moment, all I saw was arrogance and betrayal. But instead of breaking down, instead of shouting or revealing every truth, I did something that shocked even me. I smiled. I smiled at him, my lips trembling but steady. And then, without a word, I turned and walked away. Inside, I was crumbling. But on the outside, I was silent. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than any scream. That night, I lay in my small room, staring at the ceiling, replaying his words over and over. Useless. 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 Each repetition fueled something inside me. Not just pain, but resolve. I whispered into the darkness. One day, Ethan. One day, you will see who's useless. It was not anger that drove me. It was patience. A quiet decision to let my actions, not my words, deliver the lesson. And so, I began the journey of building myself back. For me this time, not for him. I didn't leave the family house immediately after his insult, but something inside me shifted. The walls that had once felt like home now felt like a cage. Every time I saw Ethan swagger through the door, basking in the praises of relatives, the word useless echoed in my mind. So I made a decision. Quietly, without a fight, without explanation, I began to prepare my exit. I started saving more aggressively, cutting out every unnecessary expense. When people asked me why I wasn't buying new clothes or why I refused outings, I just smiled. They didn't need to know I was building an escape plan. After 3 months, I had enough to move out. One Saturday morning, I packed my few belongings, clothes, books, and the little wooden jewelry box my late grandmother had given me. I didn't make a grand announcement. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I simply left the house key on the kitchen table and walked out. I rented a small studio apartment. It was nothing fancy, peeling paint, a noisy neighbor upstairs, a bed that creaked every time I turned, but it was mine. My own space. My first taste of freedom. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. At work, I threw myself into growth. I signed up for extra training programs, attended workshops, and even started networking, something I had always been too shy to do. Slowly, opportunities opened up. My boss began to notice my dedication, and within a year, I got promoted. The extra income gave me breathing room, and I didn't waste it. I started reading about investments, entrepreneurship, and passive income. My friends would tease me, saying, "Madison, you never rest. Always working or reading." I would laugh lightly and reply, "Rest is sweet when you've built something worth resting in." With every raise, every smart decision, I felt stronger. I was no longer the sister bending under the weight of someone else's dream. I was building mine. Meanwhile, Ethan's shine started to fade. At first, he carried himself like a star. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Dr. Ethan. He wore his graduation gown for photo shoots that lasted weeks, his smile plastered across social media with captions like the future of medicine. But reality doesn't bend for arrogance. Internships were grueling. Patients didn't admire his intelligence the way relatives had. They demanded compassion and patience. He lacked both. Colleagues grew irritated with his ego. His supervisors, unimpressed by his attitude, kept him in check. Rumors trickled back to me. "Your brother. He's struggling," a neighbor whispered one evening when I bumped into her at the market. I only smiled faintly. Years passed. My consultancy business, born from my side hustle and contacts, began to flourish. I partnered with companies, hired staff, and even opened a small office downtown. I upgraded from my creaky studio apartment to a comfortable 2-bedroom home. And then one day, I stood in front of a real estate office, staring at the photo of a newly built house. A modern, elegant home worth $500,000. My heart pounded. I could afford it. Signing those papers, holding the keys in my hand, I felt a rush of emotions. Pride, relief, vindication. This wasn't just a house. It was proof. Proof that I, the useless one, had built something Ethan could never imagine. I decorated it with care. Polished floors, wide windows that let in sunlight, rooms filled with furniture I chose because I loved them, not because they were second-hand leftovers. Every corner whispered freedom. One evening, as I stood on the balcony of my new home, sipping tea and watching the city lights, my phone buzzed. The name flashing on the screen made me pause. Ethan. For a moment, I debated ignoring it. But curiosity won. I answered. His voice was strained, hesitant. Madison. Can we talk? I kept my tone neutral. About what? Please, he said, almost pleading. Face to face. Just once. I hesitated, then agreed. Something in his voice told me this wasn't the confident Ethan I once knew. This was someone different. The cafe where we met was quiet, tucked away on a side street. I arrived early, ordered a coffee, and waited. When he walked in, my breath caught, not out of admiration, but shock. Gone was the polished, arrogant young man. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slumped, his clothes slightly wrinkled. He looked defeated. He slid into the chair opposite me, avoiding my gaze. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then finally, he whispered, I was wrong. I raised an eyebrow, staying silent. He swallowed hard. I was wrong about you. About everything. Madison. I need your help. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms as I studied him. The same brother who once dismissed me so easily now couldn't even hold my gaze. The cafe's soft hum, the clink of cups, the hiss of the espresso machine, seemed to fade into the background. What do you need my help for? I asked calmly, taking a slow sip of my coffee. He rubbed his palms together nervously, his voice dropping. Things haven't been easy for me. I thought once I graduated, everything would fall into place. But medicine isn't what I expected. I've made mistakes. His voice broke. I've failed, Madison. I raised an eyebrow. Failed? How? His eyes darted around the cafe, as if afraid someone might overhear. I lost one internship because I argued with the supervisor. I got kicked out of another for attitude problems. He laughed bitterly. They said I lacked compassion. Can you believe that? I didn't answer. He swallowed hard. And now, I'm in debt. Loans I can't pay back. Rent overdue. Creditors calling day and night. I don't know where else to turn. He finally looked up at me, and I saw it, the glisten of unshed tears in his eyes. Premium tears, just like I had promised myself he would one day shed. Madison. His voice cracked. Please. Help me. I know I said things. Terrible things. I didn't mean them. I was stupid. Arrogant. I see that now. You're the only one who can save me. Inside, my emotions swirled. A part of me remembered the sleepless nights, the skipped meals, the exhaustion I had endured for him. I remembered standing at his graduation, pride bursting in my chest, only for him to shatter it with one cruel word, useless. Now, here he was, broken, begging, humbled. But I didn't let my emotions show. Instead, I smiled faintly, leaning forward. Do you remember that day, Ethan? I asked softly. He blinked. What day? Your graduation day, I said, my voice calm but sharp. When someone praised me for supporting you, and you laughed. Do you remember what you called me? His face paled. He lowered his eyes. I remember. Say it, I pressed. His voice was barely a whisper. I called you useless. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. I let the silence stretch, my gaze steady on him. Finally, I leaned back, my smile growing. And now, Ethan, tell me who's useless? He flinched, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. I know I was wrong. I swear, I regret it every day. Please, Madison, I'm begging you. I can't do this without you. I watched him cry, and in that moment, I realized something important. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It didn't need screaming or insults. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge was sitting silently while the person who once called you worthless fell to their knees, knowing life had proved you were anything but. I didn't need to ruin him. Life had already done that. What I did need was to let him see the full picture. So I stood, reached into my bag, and slid something across the table, a glossy photo of my new mansion. His eyes widened as he picked it up, his lips parting in shock. "This," I said quietly, "is what useless built." He stared at the photo, tears dripping onto it, his hands trembling. His pride shattered in that moment, and I knew he would never recover it fully. I walked out of the cafe, leaving him there with his tears, his debts, and his regrets. The cool evening air hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt light, free. He had called me useless, but I had built a life worth more than his arrogance could ever touch. And now, he would live with the memory of those words, knowing I became everything he could never be. That was my revenge. Silent, steady, and sweeter than I had ever imagined. And that's my story, how the brother I carried for 6 years turned on me in one cruel moment, and how patience, success, and silence became the sharpest revenge of all. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more dramatic revenge stories, emotional family betrayals, and true story style narratives that will keep you hooked until the very end.